Thanks for joining me. I didn't do a show last week. I apologize. I had a lot of catching up to do, and I was trying to wait to see how the state of the state address went from the governor. And also, I wanted to let some more, because we're still early in the season, I wanted some more sessions to come in, let them read over some bills, see what bills are assigned to committees, and see what kind of scandalous behavior is going on. There are some concerning bills. I'll get into the one about the ICE agents, and then I'll probably touch up on one next week. I'm gonna watch that one real close about voter registration in Missouri. It seems like they're trying to remove safeguards when people vote. But anyway, I'm feeling myself a little bit. I will accept apology forms. If I remember right, was it two, two shows ago? I brought up about the Chinese government owning over 40,000 acres. Well, okay, hold on. Let's be official here. It's not the Chinese government, but it's a shell company, the WH Group in Missouri that owns all the hog farms and is the number one supplier of pork to Missouri. It's a Chinese shell company. They bought it from Smithfield. I talked about this. There's a lot of backdoor deals. They removed the laws that were established in the 1970s saying foreign governments, foreign companies cannot own Missouri land. Smithfield was wanting to sell out. They were losing money. So they dumped a bunch of money into lobbying. They were like the number one contributor in lobbying right around that time period, 2012, 2013. The laws were changed. They sold out to the Chinese, and now they own 40,000 acres of farmland in Missouri. And also, I brought up the Knob Noster Trailer Park, how they share a fence with Whiteman Air Force Base, and that's a security threat. And I was told I was a conspiracy theorist and that it's not as bad as it sounds, that it's just paranoia. And then 2 weeks later, Mr. Wu, I don't know his first name. I'm not even going to try to pronounce it, but his last name's Wu, so that I'm sticking with that. Mr. Wu was arrested outside Whiteman's Air Force Base. He was in a white van. They caught him on several occasions. He had over 16 images and videos and a flight schedule of the B 2 stealth bombers coming in and out of Whiteman Air Force Base. Little backstory on Mr. Wu is he is a military aged man who came to America through Arizona, which is a head scratcher, in 2022, 2023, Nogales, Arizona. It's like north of Tucson. My Spanish is terrible. Anyway, he was caught then by immigration authorities, and they realized their detention centers were full, and so they let him go and gave him a parole date for 2027. Just let him walk free. And this has been the case for most Chinese nationals since 2022. What's troubling is it's not just Chinese, it's also Middle Eastern. And what people don't realize is that the cartel sneaks a lot of these people over, and other organizations, probably the CIA too. They get paid a lot of money to do this. A lot of these well, they are men. You don't hardly see any women or children in these convoys that are sneaking into our country. But they pay thousands of dollars to be smuggled in, shown pathways, escorted into the country. So these are not refugees seeking a better life, seeking asylum. That's not it. They're getting paid, and these guys, from the looks of them, they don't have the money for it. So who's paying for it? The government, not our government, foreign governments, paying to have thousands and thousands of middle-aged, military, fighting-age men be snuck into our country by the cartel. In 2022, there was 2,000 on average Chinese nationals arrested coming up through the Mexico border. By 2023, it already jumped up to over 24,000. That's very concerning, and majority of them were released because the detention centers were full. So anyway, they knew who this guy was. Whenever they arrested him, they ran his name, and so he's already been deported. But that also goes to show when people think that ICE is just showing up to random places and, well, they are doing raids, but a lot of times they are looking for specific individuals that have been arrested under either the Trump administration, Biden administration, and were released due to special circumstances. And so they're waiting a parole date, so they kind of know where they're at. Because these people are supposed to check in with a parole officer, which I don't think they do. But it's a huge national security concern. And I hate to say, because it is a bad deal, but I'm kind of glad because I told you so. But it's not just Missouri. Missouri's one of the best case scenarios. If you go up north to the other commie states, they got a lot more land that's owned by Chinese government, surrounding more military bases, nuclear bases, water supplies to cities. It's a huge issue, and that's what all this is about. Is, the Republicans were the number one proponent to allowing this to happen in Missouri, and Nixon, our governor at the time, Democrat, he tried to veto it and they overrode him on that. But now there's this huge national security concern. They're being called out. So the Republicans are trying to save face. That's why the governor and then the attorney general are trying to sue the Chinese government for COVID. And then in return, instead of getting actual money back from the Chinese government saying, okay, well, we're just going to confiscate the land of all this land that your government owns, they created the problem in the first place. There wouldn't be any land to steal if they hadn't sold us out. And they sold out every single one of us. And this isn't just Missouri. We're being sold out at a national level. It really lowers your hope for our future. But back to the ICE agents thing, one of the bills was House Bill 2520. And there's two Democrats out of St. Louis. You had Ray Reid, St. Louis, and then Jeremy Dean. I'm pretty sure he's St. Louis. If I misquote on that, he's probably got to be around the area or maybe Kansas City. But I'm going to read off the bill here verbatim. It says here that ICE agents will be required to show visible credentials, agency name, badge number when interacting with the public. Refrain from wearing masks or face coverings that hide their identity, except in specific cases like medical mask for health reasons, translucent shields, safety gear for hazardous environments. Examples: toxic chemicals, underwater, motorcycle protective wear. So, if this comes into effect, which I highly doubt it since majority's Republican, if the agents do violate the law and decide to wear a mask, they'll get charged with a Class A misdemeanor, up to a year in jail, and a $2,000 fine. So, what a way to back up your law enforcement. I'm not a big fan of the mask. It can be intimidating, but I understand why they do it. I mean, these guys, they're getting death threats. They get harassed. I just seen it in the news at a church. They figured out the identity of the pastor or something at the church worked for immigration. And they stormed the church and did a big protest. That's probably why they wear the mask. So, I mean, protesters wear masks whenever they're burning down their cities and destroying the mom and pop stores that help take care of the community, and assaulting single parents that are stuck in traffic on the interstate and throwing debris through their windshields and whatnot. Anyway, I'm gonna get off that. I could go on for hours about that. The House Joint Resolution Bill on the State of the State address, the governor did talk about it, and even the speaker acted like it was just such the greatest thing. They're wanting to get rid of state income tax. They're saying it's going to fix all the problems, and they want to start winging the state off of it. That's just for their best friends, their rich best friends. They don't care about us. That's going to screw us over. They're going to bend us over the barrel with this. And I'm about to go in depth why. I'll use me for example. If so, let me back up. 80% of Missourians make under $100,000 a year. If you're in the median like me and you're making $65,000 a year, that's with overtime. You're only paying 250, 300 at the most in state income taxes annually. That's not that bad. Whenever wealthier people, they pay a lot more, but they're paying their share. I'm not trying to sound like a commie, but they need to pay their share. Their shareholders, they get their company to pass rules that violate the workers. They don't give them time off. They give them these stupid pizza parties. They screw them on every chance they get. I'm there. You guys are there. The least they could do is pay their fair share in taxes. So if they get rid of income taxes, the House Joint Resolution Bill 165, they want to rewrite Article 10, Section 26 of the Missouri Constitution, where it gets rid of all the regulations on state income tax, or not state sales tax. So here we are. Trenton's 2 for 2. I called this. I think it was the same show whenever I talked about the Chinese nationals. I said they're going to get rid of state income tax and they're going to rev up the state sales tax, and it's going to screw us over. People like us who only make 60,000, and if you make even less, it's even worse. But we spend 70 to 80% of our income on consumer taxes, on consumer goods that are taxed. Wealthier people, it's a lower percentage, of course, because they make more money. Income tax is the only thing that's fair, to where if you make more money, you pay more. And if you make less, you pay less. Sales tax does not discriminate, and it's going to punish you. But anyway, if they rewrite this part of the Missouri Constitution, it's going to remove all restrictions on sales tax. So they planned on, which he brought this up in a State of the State address. Excuse me. They're wanting to tax streaming services, electronic services, any type of online transactions, increase taxes on consumer sales good that are physical. So groceries will probably go up. They'll probably increase the luxury tax on diapers. But they're also wanting to get rid of Hancock Amendment protections, which is Article 10, Section 18E, which requires voter approval for major tax increases. Ta-da! So here we are again in Missouri with the show me strap on. And if they're going to trick people, because I hear it all the time when I'm out and about already, and I have to voice my opinion whenever I hear people talk about it. But people are like, oh, yay, that's great. No more state income tax. Now get some rope and we'll go on a trip. No, that's not what's going to happen. If anything, get rid of property tax. I shouldn't have to rent my property from people, from the state, because you never own anything in Missouri. That's one of the most communist things ever. If you do not pay your property tax, they take it from you, whether it's your car that's 100 years old or your brand new house. You never own anything. You just rent it from the state. That's for another day. So I implore people, when they put it on the ballot initiative, do not vote to lower state income tax. We really don't pay that much state income tax if you're in the median range. And all it is just like the capital gains tax that they removed. It's just to help out the wealthier friends, the shareholders, the lobbyists, the people who line their pockets. If you really want to get behind something that's good, that's going to help you, it's going to help me, As I said before, House Bill 2253, remove all taxes on retail groceries. If you're out at a restaurant, of course, you'll still have to pay sales tax on that. But we have a right to go to Walmart or Target or however rich you are and buy your food for the week for your kids that you're already struggling to pay because it's gone up 113%, and not have to pay another 1.12% taxes on that as well. To me, that's immediate relief. I spend more annually on taxes on my groceries for my family than I do on income tax. So if they really cared about lower income families, that's what they'd vote on. They'd pass that and they'd forget the income tax for now. I talked about that with Jacob too. He wants to come back on, and I want him to fully explain on his thought process on how to get rid of all those taxes completely. And there's like a step system. He's probably gonna get mad because I'm gonna butcher this, but where they tax items in production at different levels. That way they can't tax the consumer. It puts a cap on it. But Jacob, if you watch this, I'm sorry. Just we'll plan out a time for you to get on to really explain it because I didn't look into it that much. But I do want to go over that with Jacob. Is Jacob Lukemeyer? I had him on. He's the state chairman of the Constitution Party. I like him. It was really nice to have somebody else on here that's way more articulate than I am. I'm still working on things. I'm practicing my speech, my breathing. You know, the people who have watched this from the beginning till now, I hope they see the improvement, and you guys are troops putting up with me. But I like Jacob. He's to me, he's the real deal. He's a straight shooter, and he's been in the third party trenches for a long time. I feel like he just could have easily joined the Republican Party, and he probably would have got the state auditor gig when he ran. But he stuck to his guns on that, and he stuck with the third party. I think he come in fourth or third, which isn't too bad. He's still got like 40 something thousand votes whenever I looked at it. We caught some heat. I did have some people approach me about the pro-life. I'm sorry, that's just the way it is. That's how we feel about it. We're pro-life, no exceptions, really. My standpoint on the whole thing is when you look back at it, Margaret Sanger, who was the founder of Planned Parenthood, was a very, very big racist person. She deeply believed in eugenics, and she wrote several study papers and letters to her friends bragging about it in the 1920s and 30s, how she was going to use the time period when women were trying to gain rights and have their voices heard more, use that empowerment movement to get behind Planned Parenthood to push her eugenics agenda. And it was the 1932, I think. Well, let me check real quick. So in 1921, she wrote an article that birth control is the most beautiful eugenics method, and she backed up Buck v. Bill big time, and that was about forced chemical castration, pretty much, of individuals. But she wrote a letter in the 30s saying that pretty much admitting that Planned Parenthood was to eradicate the African American population in America. And if you look at it now, they still 43% of abortions are African Americans. 1/3 of my generation was lost to abortions. It was 1939. Yep. I'm not going to use the word she uses, but she says the blank cannot figure out that they want us to, or that I want to exterminate the population. So, and when you take a deep dive into modern times, they might detest everything she stood for and say that their values have changed. But I don't really think so, because Hugo Boss, they don't make their fancy Third Reich uniforms anymore. Porsche, they don't make Panzer tanks anymore. But Planned Parenthood is still following the same practices she implemented. And if you look at the percentages, 95% of abortions are caused just for convenience, where the mother says that they just can't afford the child, they don't want the child, it's not the right time. And then you have the other 5% where it is your very sad cases where it is incest, rape, or a medical issue. But the number one cause is financial concern. So I do think some of that goes back on our government. We're selling out our livelihood left and right. There really isn't any subsidies or benefits to encourage young couples to get married and start a family. I'm not saying that's justifiable to murder an infant or a fetus. But what I'm saying is that there is a root cause to it, and there really needs to be a deep dive into what causes this. I think one, it's a spiritual and a moral degradation that we're seeing. Dads don't want to be dads. The father's not in the home anymore. The moms, choose a better partner. As cold as it sounds. And the back up to what I said about Planned Parenthood not really changing any of their practices compared to what Margaret was doing is I did some digging. The National Institutes of Health, the NIH, and the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, the NIAID, which is an agency led by Mr. Wonderful Dr. Anthony Fauci. They paid $430,000 for fetuses, and they were using those fetuses. They were removing the skin from them and sewing them onto rats to see if the skin would grow hair and pretty much make humanoid type rats. And they were successful. 2018, 2019, they did that, and they have extensive reports. It's very gross. So for people to say it's a clump of cells, how are they able to remove the skin and do something like that? It was fetal tissue research. What was the cause? So, but that's my standpoint. If you don't like me because of that, I'm sorry. No, I still care about you as a person, and hopefully you don't shoot me somewhere out on Main Street somewhere or something over it. But yeah, that's about it. It was like House Bill 187. I mentioned earlier they're wanting to get rid of pre-voter registration and do same-day voter registration in Missouri, which pretty much tells people, hey, if you're not, you can register today, vote, and then we'll just double check it afterwards. So to me, that's a very slippery slope. I feel like you should have a birth certificate or a proof of citizenship, and you should have all that validated, or even do it at the time, even if you guys stand in line for 4 hours to vote. I'm really against anybody just walking in and voting. I think that's how some of the northern states have gotten into the condition that they're in now, is that they let people like Mr. Wu go and run amok, and he gets to vote. And he's going to vote for specific people as long as he knows his benefits are going to continue, or if they know the foreign aid's going to continue. But that's about all I got. I'm going to keep an eye on some of this. There's a lot more sinister things going on.